I'm Joe Rockey, and before we begin this episode of Father and Joe, I invite everyone to give us some feedback. In episode 383 and 384, we gave specific drills that you can implement in your life. What we are asking is, can you give us feedback upon implementing them and sending us the results to fatherandjoe@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and here is this upcoming episode. Hello and welcome to another episode of Father and Joe. I am Joe Rockey here with Father Boniface Hicks. And Father, today I want to talk about something that might be outside of the traditional virtues, but something that I think is one of the most important parts of life. It gets shown in the gospel, but only through what I can see as examples. Never explicitly says, make this attribute part of your life. And to me, that attribute is a sense of curiosity and wanting to learn. At no point does Jesus say, oh, go be curious. But we see examples of him and throughout really the whole gospel of people being curious and their life being better. And you bring it up in a lot of different ways. Like, I wonder why it works like that. I wonder how it works. But curiosity is also one of these things that I know I have, but I'm not sure I have any idea how to teach it. This is why I equate this to riding a bike. I know how to do it. I have no idea how to teach someone balance. But this is also not my world per se. I don't even know whose world it is. I'm assuming it's closer to yours as you teach people regularly. Part of what you teach is God, but also how to think, because you mentioned epistemology a lot. So I'm wondering if curiosity ever blends into your world, and see if this is even a relevant topic to talk about.
Yeah, I love this topic. I love that you brought it up. Yeah, what's necessary for curiosity? I think we could explore that a little bit,
Mhm.
and that would go along with what shuts down curiosity. And so certainly, if we're in threat response, curiosity is not going to be very active. If you're in a position of saving your life, and that could be literal, that's obviously the starting point, is think about what it's like if a lion is chasing you. You're not wondering why that flower is purple. You're just not. You're
Mhm.
trying to get out of the danger, away from the threat. So there's a certain amount of curiosity that's shut down because people are in threat response. And that might be in the short term, or in the, like if you're working a business deal with somebody and they have some anxiety about getting your business and they're trying to prove themselves to you, they're probably in sort of like left brain action mode, tactical movements, and they're trying to win the day.
Mhm.
If you're having a conversation, casual conversation with a colleague, with could even be somebody that you're going to get business from, but it's not getting driven into, am I going to get the sale or not? Or even perhaps after agreeing on the sale, then things relax, and then, hey, that's a nice car. Where'd you get that from? Do you like how that drives? I've been interested in that myself. Then the more kind of curious conversation, more openness, then that has a way of opening up after there's the security of a connection, when we're not threatened with disconnection, when we're not threatened with loss or rejection. So that would be one thing, is creating an environment in which there is a real felt sense of security and a kind of freedom. Curiosity in one sense is a luxury. It's the kind of thing you can only do when you're not in danger of being eaten. And so you have it's something that moving into that more right brain space of exploration, of looking at the big picture, zooming out a bit, seeing things that we don't ordinarily see. So I would say that's one thing, is kind of setting the environment. There are ways that we can do that and invite curiosity by not putting pressure. It's like, come up with an idea or else. Well, that's about the best way to shut an idea down. When we're desperate, it's much harder to think outside the box, to have that kind of internal freedom. Makes me think, as a side note, that one of the really inspiring things about some of the action movies with really intelligent protagonists, like whatever, Jason Bourne or James Bond or something like that, is the fact that they can be creative and curious in a way when they're under fire. So to actually create that kind of capacity is heroic. So not to be expected of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly we want to be careful not to expect that of ourselves, although that's obviously, that kind of resilience and healthy self-assurance is something to aim towards, to grow into. But another way that we might cultivate curiosity in somebody is, of course, by modeling. And sometimes we don't even think to ask certain kinds of questions or to be curious about certain kinds of things. I imagine if you and I were to go into a business office together or a house together or something like that, the things that you would be looking at, the things that you would be wondering about, are very different than things that would even occur to me. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
know that there are options around that. Like, oh, there are things behind the walls. Oh, how about that? That's amazing. Oh, you mean walls can be constructed of different materials? Never even knew that. Uh, anyway, I'm not quite that ignorant, but it's something like that. And so just to be with you in a space that you have more, mental options to explore, where you have more of a sense of expertise and mastery, that can really foster curiosity in me, to see the kinds of questions that you ask and the way that you go about something that I don't know very much about. Um, and and then I think we can do that. I'm just my mind is being drawn to something I did a lot growing up, which is to go to museums. And it's a similar kind of thing. In a museum, you learn to be curious through the lens of people who have an expertise that you don't have. Like
Mm-hmm.
the way that they describe a topic, whether it's an historical event or it's a place in nature or a particular period of time, or anyway, the way that they explore those things and display the different options and tell you the narrative and explain what happened and why, and those kinds of things, it really teaches us. It expands our possibilities and helps us to realize that there's something more out there than I would have thought of on my own. And and then that can even overflow into other categories. Well, if there can be 10 million kinds of flowers and they have all of these little subtle distinctions, well, what about the kinds of bears? And
Mm-hmm.
so we might apply the concept to a different category, and then explore there as well. And then maybe just the last comment, and I'll let you jump in here. Uh, I think being rewarded for curiosity is another. Rewarding people for things is generally a way of reinforcing them. We reinforce the neural pathways, and we reinforce the thought processes and behaviors around curiosity when we say, like, wow, that's really interesting, and it strengthens my connection. I'm sure if I went into a house and learned curiosity from you, it would strengthen our connection. You would feel affirmed, like, oh, I have this thing to offer,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm teaching something, and that's really being affirmed and rewarded. And so I think that's another way that we can maybe teach curiosity.
I think that's 100% correct. It's the way you do that example. I just look at my own professional life. So from 2011 on, as you said, I started doing all kinds of things in real estate, which I didn't even know half of them that I'd end up doing even existed when I started. And the curiosity of going in there. And along the way, obviously, COVID happens, right? And we got to figure out how to make a business work when you're not allowed to do anything to a property. How are you supposed to fix it when you're not allowed to let people work in it? So all kinds of curiosity working around the box, and eventually realizing that my next horizon is called into sales and teaching people how to do some of the stuff you just said there. Because you're right, no one buys anything when their defense mechanisms are up. So how do you present a conversation that makes sense, that is going to be getting the information across, but not raising defense mechanisms. Because no one likes to get the just buy my stuff thrown in their face, and it's a natural shutdown. Even if it's like the perfect fit, if it's presented to you wrong, you'll never buy it. So a little bit of a digression there, but one of the things that was coming to me as you were giving the answers about why curiosity can't work, I loved, especially the shutdown element. One of the things he also said was that by its nature, you're going to go outside the box a little bit. In being curious, I'm going to either relearn something that already existed or discover something new. I mean, that's kind of the point of curiosity. It's new to me. It might not be new to mankind, but it's new to me. And as you were giving that example with the museum, my thought that I was always so fascinated about was, how do you make an arrowhead sharp? That always has been fascinating to me. Normally, at least, I don't know if it's due to age or corrosion, but there's always little divots from the way they whacked it, but like in the center of it, but the edges were always sharp. That always fascinated me. And just in general, anything that's made, how did they go about making this, given the technology of the day, has always fascinated me. So I bring this up not just to talk about curiosity, even though I do know it's very important and rewarding, because I think it goes in line with a theme that we discussed briefly earlier in the month, but something I know we spent a lot of time on about a year ago, which was the notion of not stopping and becoming lukewarm. Um, we in those previous episodes, we discussed the importance of, even if you're going completely the wrong direction, Jesus said that's better than losing all of your momentum and stopping. And as I look at commonalities, I see, as you use the example, look at other people as examples, the ones that seem to have the motor running and moving in a direction with velocity have curiosity. Again, whether it's the right direction or wrong direction, to a certain degree, I'm not here to judge that. But the point is that curiosity engine keeps moving forward. And that's why I felt this is so important. So how do we essentially keep willing to be curious, knowing that there's a strong possibility of what I discover either ends up being useless, ends up being criticized because it's different, or any of these other negative connotations that could come from stepping outside the box, which curiosity kind of needs you to do?
Yeah, there's always a certain kind of risk involved. Curiosity in itself, I think, is anyway. I suppose we have to know some of our limits or places. If you're going to be curious on the other side of the security perimeter or something like that, around some protected thing. Wonder what happens when you put your arm through the little laser thing that's gonna, I wonder what those alarms sound like. So we've got to have some level of awareness of what we're doing, and but at the same time, when we don't have, I mean, we make honest mistakes or we misestimate things. That's again where having the kind of confidence in connection that if I do this thing, it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to destroy me. Maybe I'm going to stick my nose in somewhere that is one step too far, and I'm not trying to do that, but that might happen. I mean, we can end up moving in directions which are not perfect, and so that's where, again, having the confidence, not only not being in a threat response, but also having the sort of, in psychological language, they talk about children having secure attachment, in a good sense, to parents. So children with a secure attachment are more likely to go exploring because they know, if they get themselves into something that's a mess, it's not going to destroy their relationship with their parents. And in fact, their parents are hopefully going to bail them out. They're going to work through it. It's going to be fine. And so then they learn over time, well, this particular behavior was a little bit more dangerous or threatening than that particular behavior, and all of that shapes the directions in which that curiosity, that desire to explore, can go. And of course, there's going to be a natural difference in people too. I mean, there are people who are a little more naturally conservative, and we need that, and people who are a little more naturally creative and progressive, and we need that too. Those need to stay in conversation with each other. It's one of the downsides of the current political atmosphere, is that there seems to be no appreciation for what the other side offers. But that's a whole other series of conversations. And so, knowing your children, knowing your friends, knowing your colleagues, and knowing what can be reinforced and supported in terms of curiosity. And some people may need to be pushed out of their comfort zone a little bit more. Other people may need to be dialed back a little bit more. And so that's going to be different based on personality as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this topic is so meaningful to me. I mean, like I said, because one of the things of Father and Joe, which I wanted to create, was to give actionable things that people can do to enhance their lives, which is always, because really the secret of life is having better relationships. Curiosity to me is one of those moving parts that's essential, almost like drinking water, but we don't really think about it. How do you keep engaged with talking with someone? Well, you be curious about what they're doing, what's going on in their world. And that natural curiosity, as you gave great examples earlier, breeds deeper connections. It's a natural part. Yeah, it takes some effort to want to look at something a little bit different. Yeah, it takes some ability to have some humility. Like, I might be wrong in what my line of thinking was if I ask why it is you believe this or think that. There's possibilities you might change and grow, which is inherently scary to some people less so than others. I get that. But all of this is two things kind of dawn upon me. First is that being curious is a choice. It's not something you're born with or born without. You get to choose that in any moment. You can go out and be curious or not. And the second is are you afraid of what the results might be? But the one thing that you hit upon, which I know to be true as well, is those that exercise this element of life have a much better life because their relationships grow, their knowledge base grows, and everything around them gets better. So I bring that up because I think it's something very important and something that we all can try each and every day. So I guess the calling for this week would be, if there's an opportunity to be curious about something, take it and just see what happens without judgment, without reservation. Just go down that path, see what's going to happen. And I'm willing to bet that the relationship that you did that with will grow and be better. So we thank everyone for listening and being with us here this week, and we will be with you again next week.